Hey, friends, welcome to episode 498 of the My 123 Cents podcast. I am Kevin Huntsberger and being joined this week by both Chad Smart and John Cena. You just can't see John and you can't hear him either. That's a little bit of a pun because we are talking Movie Mania this week and it is all about Ricky Stanicky. Chad, how are things going? It's been a bit.
It has, and yeah, after that opening, I think I should have taken another week off. So yeah, no, it's good to be back here. I've missed talking wrestling, although I guess we're not really talking wrestling much this week. But I just want to say, last weekend, as we record this, last weekend I was in Vegas for AEW's Double or Nothing. I got to see Jack Perry set on fire, so that is the epitome of pro wrestling. And unfortunately, I tried giving Ref Aubrey your phone number, but she just kept ignoring me. So,
oh man, maybe next time.
Maybe.
Well, we'll get into our Movie Mania here in a minute, but let's talk a little bit about AEW. You were there, obviously, as you said. Now, I haven't really heard a whole lot of reviews from you specifically, but what'd you think? Did you enjoy the show? MJF, of course, made his triumphant return, and they saw a little bit of a spike in ratings on Dynamite this past week. So we'll see if that trend continues now that MJF is back. Mercedes Moné made her in-ring wrestling debut for AEW. So give me your thoughts.
No, I enjoyed it. We had a good time. I talked my girlfriend into going with me, so she will probably say she did not enjoy it, but I think she had a good time. She was kind of getting into it and enjoying the people watching around us. But no, we were right on the rampway, as on the left-hand side of the ramp, about halfway down. So, I got to scissor with the Acclaimed. And Daddy Ass did not come over, unfortunately. I was going to try to, see if he remembered old times of us. See if he remembered you because your buddy Pac was on the show, but in a losing effort. No, I enjoy AEW. I think it was a good show. Obviously, the standard complaint that I have with most AEW pay-per-views is they're too long. This one went about 40 minutes longer than I was expecting. So I think they could have easily cut 3 matches off the show, moved them to Dynamite, and had a better flow. But yeah, the MJF return was a surprise. And the good part is he beat up Adam Cole. The bad part is I had to listen to Adam Cole for about 5 minutes before MJF came out. Hopefully he put Adam Cole back on the shelf. And I think, looking at AEW over the last 6 months, I think one of the things that has hurt them the most is the fact that they had been building this double storyline, which was Adam Cole turning on MJF, but then Adam Cole gets injured. MJF is injured as well. So there was no payoff to that. It just kind of dropped and they never mentioned it. So they kind of wrapped that storyline up. And with MJF coming back, hopefully it will be more return to, classic AEW. I'm curious where MJF will fit in now with, being in the title picture, or if he'll have, it looks like Roosh will be his first feud coming up. But, overall, the matches were great. It's unfortunate that Adam Copeland broke his leg doing a stupid jump off the top of the cage.
Oh, I didn't realize he broke his leg. Okay, wow.
Yeah. Broke his tibia, I guess. Tibia.
Yeah.
Tilapia.
Sounds like the ambulance is coming to get him.
Yeah. His jump, he kind of, instead of doing more of a splash, he kind of came straight down, which probably not wise for someone at his age. I say that as someone as his age. I wouldn't even jump off, the bottom rope, much less a 20-foot cage.
Yeah.
At least he didn't pull a Sid, so that was good.
Oh, God.
But yeah, and then, the Anarchy in the Arena match, which was a match all over the arena, which led to Jack Perry being set on fire, which I found interesting because the week before, Darby Allin had come out with a flamethrower, and a lot of complaints online that I saw were, well, it's stupid that he comes out with a flamethrower because he's not going to use it. Well, just just have to wait a week, and you realize that yes, he is going to use the flamethrower, and is it wrestling? No. Was it entertaining? Yes.
Okay, but you never found the Bray Wyatt getting you. I remember specifically you complaining about Bray Wyatt getting burned, but because it happens on Tony Khan's dime, you're all,
No, no,
Dad, come on.
no, because Bray Wyatt got burned and killed and laid in the ring, whereas Jack Perry gets burned. They immediately come out with
And wins the
flamethrowers.
match. The guy suffers third degree.
Oh no,
the match.
I will say yes. He probably should not have won the match. He should have been taken out, but at least he wasn't left for dead in the middle of the ring and then comes back a week later. So,
I want to ask you too about the whole audience vibe though, because you talked about it being a long show, and I go back to WrestleMania 32, which to me was painfully long in Dallas
and horrible. Yes,
yeah, and by the end of the night, we were like done. We were done before the end of the night, but. Talk to me a little bit about, because we've been to WrestleMania, we've been to the 2-night WrestleManias now. You've been to a couple of AEW pay-per-views, I think, right?
This is my second, yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. So what's the audience vibe like? Because we talked before about walking into, for example, SoFi and the experience and that vibe. Is it a different vibe? Because you have been to Dynamite as well and
Collision.
So talk to me a little bit about the difference between. Or is there a difference? Is it just that wrestling vibe?
It's the wrestling vibe. I mean, this one was interesting because it's in a casino theater. So as we're walking through the casino, you see, and we got there before doors opened because we wanted to get something to eat. And there were people apparently lined up for a couple of hours ahead of time to get in. And I think part of that is if you want merchandise on an AEW show, you get there early because they don't have very many merch stands.
Oh,
and then, I think there may have only been one merch stand in this place due to the way the arena is set up. And so, I mean, it was cool walking through the arena or walking through the casino because we're walking by the slot machines and I hear this woman say, "Oh, I didn't want to bother you." And I turn back and she's talking to Brody King, and who apparently was just, hours before the show out there playing slots. And then as we're walking by, Top Flight comes walking in with their gear. And after the show, even when we're just killing time waiting to get a taxi, Wardlow comes walking through, so it was more of a interesting aspect in that regard. But once you walk into the arena and get into the crowd, the crowd was hyped. I always say, no matter where I sit, I'm going to be sitting next to that guy and there was a guy that was in front of us who I don't think shut up the entire time. The entire show. And I mean, it was funny at one point when Mercedes and Willow were having when Tony Storm and Serena were having their match towards the last half of the match, she's like, "Oh man, this match is really good. It's really great." And my girlfriend's like, "It's always been great. You've been talking too much to, and he's like, "Oh yeah." But there were a couple guys, and there was a guy that was in front of us who had an awesome demolition tattoo that I wish I could have got a photo of to show you, since I know you're still looking for your inspiration for your first. But these guys were just, into it and talking and it was a great vibe. There were points during the show where the crowd was kind of maybe taking a break because, again, the problem with AEW. I say problem, it's a double-edged sword because, I talked to you that WWE pay-per-views have too much filler on them. And so, it'll be like 20 minutes between matches.
Right.
And AEW is just like, no, we're going to, nothing gets time to breathe. It's just like, okay, this happened. Now we're right on to the next match. Like when Chris Statlander turned on Willow after their match, then it's like, okay, get the next match going. And it's like, well, give us time to process things. But yeah, no, the crowd was hyped. I think, the Mercedes Willow match had probably one of the best crowd reactions, and it seemed to be about 75-35 split for Willow, which was interesting because you figure, Sasha, the former Sasha Banks coming in, she's going to be the big star. But, I think we've also discussed in the past how AEW fans are more, I don't want to necessarily say not WWE fans, but they don't want to see necessarily the ex WWE stars coming in and taking the spots from the AEW homegrown talent or the people that have been there. So um, and I think they've done a good job of building Willow up over the last 6 months to a year to make her a top baby face in the company. And so that was interesting. And yeah, I mean, during the Anarchy match, it's just all types of crazy. And again, we were sitting in a section where uh, we had guys yelling random stuff. Getting, they got a Kmart suit chant going for Don Callis, and um, when Christian came out, they got a deadbeat dad chant going. Just these random things that made the show a little bit more interesting, and it wasn't obnoxious like you and I have been. I think back to WrestleMania 27. The guy like, oh, I got kicked out of the Hall of Fame last night, calling all the divas sluts, and it's like, oh, you're cool, dude. Like,
Yeah.
but yeah, it wasn't that bad. It was not. It was fun without being obnoxious. I will say.
What's your takeaway on MJF when it comes to, because when he lost the belt to Samoa Joe, I think it was at the end of
December, yeah.
23. Immediately the rumors start, he's going to WWE, he's going to be in the Royal Rumble, he's going to be at WrestleMania, he's going to show up on night 2 at this time, and fans were just fantasy booking, obviously. But I think what kind of also fueled those flames was the fact that they took MJF off of their website, and instead of, like you said, maybe keeping the interest in that story going. But I guess if they didn't know for sure when he was coming back, but then they made it feel like he was maybe not going to come back, and then he comes back and it's a bigger surprise. Do you think keeping that story alive with, because Cole's legitimately injured too, right? He's not. Yeah, but has he been on the product since that?
He was on a couple weeks ago, or I think at the end of last month's pay-per-view, or after Roderick Strong won the title. I believe he came out in the wheelchair and stood up and made it look like he was, healthy again. And I think that's a bigger problem. An issue too is that you have this group, the Undisputed Kingdom, set up with Cole, Roderick Strong, Wardlow, Taven, and Bennett, and they haven't really done anything since, in this year, which, that's fine by me because they should be relegated to Ring of Honor, in my opinion. So I never have to watch them. But I think that, that has been a big issue, with MJF coming back. I mean, is he AEW's biggest homegrown star? Is he bigger than Darby and Jungle Boy or Jack Perry, or, I don't know. I would say probably so. I think him coming out in a Triple H-esque leather and denim jacket was an interesting choice, and I don't know how many people picked up on that.
Twitter did.
Yeah, because it's like when Triple H came back in 2002, that's what he started wearing. And so I'm like, is it done as a homage or is it done as a tongue in cheek? Trying to work the marks.
Right. And, I think that. Yeah.
So, but yeah, again, we'll see. I mean, you could have a great debut, but you got to follow it up. So,
well, and speaking on that end as well, get your quick thoughts on Ethan Page showing up at NXT, which was a surprise to me. I was not expecting that, but I think to me the even bigger surprise was Jordan Grace showing up, and apparently there's going to be a collaborative effort between WWE and TNA and maybe some other companies. Obviously I would say TNA will stand to benefit more than WWE, but I think it's also going to create some new opportunities and new matchups. We saw Jordan at the Royal Rumble this past year, which was a surprise. And when her music hit the other night on NXT, I was legit surprised. And of course, we watch some of those wrestling streamers and YouTubers and stuff who, I don't know if it's part of their shtick to be over the top. They get more views than I do, so maybe we need to start doing stuff like that. But obnoxiously reacting, it was a surprise, but I was not going to stand up and scream, "Holy shit!" and knock my computer over in a mad rush. So I think there's definitely a little bit of acting going on with those guys. But what are
Yeah,
your thoughts? Do you know does WWE? I mean, they're a rich talent pool already, but do
yeah.
they need to reach out to other companies, or will this end up ultimately hurting the business?
Well, I think it's when a lot of TV shows do something, people will say, "Ah, The Simpsons did it first," or something happens in real life, people say, "Oh, The Simpsons did it first because The Simpsons did it." As far as working with TNA, AEW did it first. You know, Christian was the TNA champion or the Impact champion on AEW television. So I could be snarky and be like, "Oh, it's WWE trying to be like AEW," but in all seriousness, it's an interesting concept. I'm curious to see how much crossover there will be and who will be involved. I mean, I'm hopefully we can get guys like Nick Namath and Mustafa Ali into the NXT zone. I think those guys could be a real big shot in WWE if they were given a chance. But now, I yeah, I think it's going to help TNA more than I don't see TNA people showing up on the main roster. I don't see them showing up in Raw or SmackDown. I think it will be just an NXT thing. And one of the interesting aspects is I can't think of his name, but there's a guy in NXT. His name's Wesley, and he was part of the MSK Must See Kids with another wrestler who was released from WWE, who's now back in TNA. They were the Rascals, and they were in TNA. So I'm curious if they'll acknowledge that relationship or not. Yeah, I, I'm curious. We'll see. I don't know how long is the agreement going to last? Is it going to be a short term thing, or is it going to be till through next year? Because a lot of speculation I've seen online is a lot of people want Joe Hendry to show up in the Royal Rumble. If we were in October, November, I could say like, okay, maybe that's an option, but Royal Rumble being what 7, 8 months away, I don't know, if this will still be going on by then, and we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I think anytime wrestling companies work together, it's a good thing, and we'll see.
So you don't count Ric Flair and Christian the trade back in 2012 as working together?
Um, no, because didn't Christian just show up one time, or
No, he went and wrestled for TNA.
but for one show, right? It was like a one off.
No, Christian go to TNA to? Didn't they trade
Well,
Ric Flair and Christian for the Hall of Fame or something? And then Christian
they
stayed or something.
Christian had gone
Or
to.
was he back in WWE by
I,
then?
I think he was back in WWE by then, and he just showed
Okay.
up for like Bound for
Okay.
Glory or
Okay. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, he was
so,
okay because he had already won the heavyweight title. Yeah, that's right.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
And I do think wrestling promotions should be able to trade people back and forth, and that would be awesome.
what do you think the odds are that AEW and WWE ever do any sort of collaborative thing like this?
Mm, I would say in the next 2 to 3 years, probably very slim. In the next 5 to 10, who knows? It'll be interesting to see where wrestling goes and what is going on. What are the odds that one buys the other company within 15 years?
Hmm,
If now that because since WWE has already been sold and
right.
it's owned not by a family conglomerate anymore,
Yeah.
if it's if business goes on the downturn and they want to get out, I was going to say, what do you think Jordan Grace will win the NXT title
You know, I
next
was
week?
I was going to ask you that too. I would think not, but man, would that be an interesting thing if it did?
Mhm.
And since they are, working more collaboratively, because I can remember back in the early '90s, some of the WWE guys or WWF guys then
Mhm.
going to USWA. I don't remember them coming onto WWE TV though. It was
Mhm.
WWE guys going on USWA TV.
Yeah.
Uh, Outside of Jerry Lawler, of course. But Coco
Mhm.
Beware and Kamala, I remember them going to USWA and winning the heavyweight title down there. But that was never on WWE TV. So this will be interesting
Right.
to see what they do. And you know, I think we're past the phase of, back in the day when Vince was accused of, and in some cases probably rightfully so, but you know, guys coming in from other promotions and beating his talent, would have never happened. You
Mhm.
look at, countless examples, except when Ric Flair goes in and wins the Royal Rumble. But I think if Vince were still there and this deal were going on, they'd humiliate Jordan Grace and have her lose in 45 seconds. But
Yeah.
I think it's a definite possibility because Jordan Grace also, and this isn't a diss to anyone, it's going to come off like that, but she looks like a legitimate wrestler. You know what I mean? We've
Mhm.
talked about this before too. If it were somebody that was, a woman coming in that's maybe, and I'll say Liv Morgan, for example. To me, Liv Morgan is talented, but she does not look the part, if that makes sense. Like I
Yeah.
would not when Rhea Ripley inevitably comes back and we have that feud, I would think that Rhea's going to eat her lunch, but maybe not. I don't know. And am I burying myself here? Am I digging myself into a
No,
hole?
I get you because I saw the same sort of comments about Mercedes
Mm-hmm.
Monet or Monet. Like
Mm-hmm.
she just looks, she doesn't look intimidating enough. And it's, same way with, as I've said many times, Adam Cole. Adam Cole, and I'm going to
Yeah.
keep burying Adam Cole in this show the entire time until he responds and I get a cease and desist letter. Um, but Adam Cole does not look like a wrestler. So if he showed up in NXT, forget that he's already been in NXT, but
Right.
let's say,
Right.
if AEW and WWE had a relationship and he showed up and took out Trick Williams, I believe Trick is the current champion.
Yeah.
I would be like, why did this fan jump in the ring and
Mm-hmm.
security not get to him?
Yeah.
So I see your point. I was gonna say, AEW's next show coming up is Forbidden Door, which they started last year before,
I think it was 2 years
with
ago.
2 years ago, where they had the working relationship with New Japan, and they bring in New Japan talent. This year, they're going to have some CMLL talent. Do you think that the success of those partnerships and the fan reaction to seeing other guys coming in, do you think that has played a part in WWE being willing to work with other promotions and realizing that fans are aware that there are promotions outside the WWE?
I mean, honestly, I think it all goes back to Vince McMahon. I think him being gone, I
Mhm.
don't think that Triple H or Bruce Pritchard or whomever else is kind of at the helm
Yeah.
necessarily ignored the fact that there was competition. I mean, back in the day, I can remember Harley Race and Terry Funk and Dusty Rhodes showing up in WWE, and it was almost treated as if these were all
New,
newcomers,
yeah.
and Harley Race is 42 or 43 years old. He's clearly not a rookie, but
Harley Race was 25. He just always looked like he was 50, like
so,
Arn Anderson.
yeah, exactly. But I think that more than anything, uh, it was the guy in charge. It was that audience of one that they were always answering
Mhm.
to, and right or wrong, that's the way it was, and it did make him a billionaire along the way. But I think that um, obviously, Triple H can't do everything he wants to do. I think there's a protocol now that it is a more corporate, it's more
Mhm.
corporate now than it was before
Yeah.
with TKO and all of that being involved in it. So I think that, yeah, we'll see more of that, but I also won't be surprised if we see some UFC crossover as well. We see WWE talent at UFC shows watching.
Mhm.
I wouldn't be surprised to see, a few more of the UFC, some of the more, because I think some of those guys are just there to kick ass and not be entertaining. So I
Mhm.
think that we could see crossover in that regard as well. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. Uh, I'll
I
be
got
curious.
I got 4 words for you: Shayna Baszler, Ronda Rousey match. That's 5 words. Um,
Oh boy, weren't they a tag team at one point?
they were a tag team. Then
Sh- Shayna
then
turned
they,
on her.
yeah, and then they had a UFC style match, which is regarded as one of the worst matches of last year.
Oh God, I don't even remember that.
Yeah,
So
that's how good it was.
yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think, and there was a show out here in LA either Thursday, I think it was Thursday night. It was a promotion I've never heard of
Hmm.
that was streaming on Twitch, but I think it was a Japanese promotion making and apparently Nick Khan was there, who's the
Oh
head
yeah,
guy, top guy in
yeah.
WWE, um, not Tony Khan. He was off doing something else, but Nick Khan was there. So, and Nick Khan has been at Bloodsport over WrestleMania weekend, which is which a couple of WWE wrestlers, I believe Shayna Baszler may have been was on the Bloodsport
Oh yeah,
show,
yeah. That's right. Yes.
so yeah, I think we're in an interesting time of understanding that yes, there's competition, but it's not, you know, I don't know. I would say, it's going to be a weird analogy maybe, but if we can have wrestling promotions being crossed over, I think we can also have Coke and Pepsi in the same
Restaurant.
restaurants and venue. So hopefully that will be maybe this will start that procedure to, this change in society.
There you go. I like it. Well, we're almost 30 minutes in. We are here to talk a little movie mania as well. Chad, always good getting insight from you and your
Yeah.
perspective, especially being at All In or what
Double or not,
Double or
double or
Nothing.
nothing. Yeah.
Double or Nothing, and I called it All In last week on the podcast, and I also introduced last week's podcast as episode 297 instead of 497. So I was having an off week, but yeah, we're back on track this week and talking about a film called Ricky Stanicky, and it is streaming on Netflix. I believe it's
Prime,
on
Amazon.
Netflix. Oh, is it Amazon?
Yes.
Okay, my bad. I thought it was Netflix. Oh yeah, here it is on Amazon.
Mhm.
So, Chad, this is probably the third or fourth John Cena film that we have reviewed on the podcast. The Marine being the first. Then we did Vacation Friends. We need to watch Vacation Friends 2 at some
We do
point as
not.
well.
We do not.
Give me your overall impression. I watched Ricky Stanicky when it first dropped about a month or so ago. It is rated R. It's almost 2 hours long. Uh, it got a 6.2 IMDb rating out of 10. I have a feeling yours is going to be lower than that, but give me your overall thoughts. Zac Efron, who played Kevin Von Erich in the Iron Claw, is I guess the most noticeable or notable actor in this film outside of John Cena. So give me some thoughts here. What do you think?
Well, well, first, let's say it was directed by Peter Farley. I think it's Farley, who is one half of the Farley brothers who were big in the 90s with Dumb and Dumber, Kingpin, um, something about Mary. And so, and I believe Peter is the one who won an Oscar for directing Green Book, which is totally not, yes. Um, his brother Bobby did the movie Champions with Woody Harrelson last year, which I highly recommend. That one was very surprising to me, how much I enjoyed that. But yeah, Ricky Stanicky, when I saw the trailer, when I read about it, I was expecting just lowbrow, stuff that, again, 30 years ago, probably would have laughed at. But as a 20-year old now, as just turning 50, I'm like too mature for that. I need highbrow entertainment. Um, and I will say, it wasn't. I mean, there are some moments. I mean, especially like John Cena's whole rock and roll performances. Um, but overall, this movie was not uh, as lowbrow as I expected it to be,
Yeah,
which I think was a good thing.
right. I agree. I thought the same thing. And we're not going to give you any spoilers, but
Yeah.
the premise is, what is it? Three friends. They cause some
Created a
trouble.
fake friend. Yeah.
Yeah, they cause trouble as youth, create a fake friend to blame everything on, and then this carries over into adulthood and into their wives and children and all that good stuff. So they are uh, then desperate to find a real Ricky Stanicky or find Ricky Stanicky. I
Mhm.
thought when I saw the trailer originally, I thought maybe John Cena's was really Ricky Stanicky, like his actual name was Ricky Stanicky, and so they just
Mhm.
paid him to come along and play along. But anyway, that's not the case, and hilarity ensues. And I think John Cena, and I have not seen, his more. I don't know that he's been in a quote unquote serious role, but I have not seen like he's Peacemaker, right? And
Yeah,
I haven't seen any of that. I haven't seen him in Fast and Furious. I think he's in Bumblebee.
yeah.
He's an action star, but he's all to me. He's got some chops as a comedic actor as well. I thought this was a fun film, and you know I don't think it's too far off from the John Cena that we see
And,
or we saw on Monday Night Raw and SmackDown back in the day.
mm, yeah. Well, first, I would recommend anybody who hasn't watched Peacemaker to watch it because that is probably one of the best superhero properties out there.
Okay.
And I say that as someone who's not a big fan of James Gunn, the director and writer, because I still want my $6 back for Scooby Doo. And I don't know. James Gunn's from St. Louis. Maybe you'll run into him at some point.
Oh,
You can,
I did not
uh,
know that.
yeah. Anyway, totally off topic. Yeah, no, John Cena. One thing I like about Cena is he doesn't seem to care about being the butt of the joke or showing
Right.
ass, if you will. Because there's some stuff in this movie where you're like, yeah, I don't know if The Rock would have or Batista would have
Hmm.
done that.
Yeah.
Um,
Speaking of
and
that,
yeah,
playing off of showing some ass, the Academy Awards when he
yes,
comes out seemingly naked,
mm-hmm.
and people were like, "Oh, this is humiliating," and they're initiating, and he
Yeah, it
was
was
like,
the Illuminati
"Yeah,
initiation.
the
Yeah.
Illuminati stuff," and he was like totally down with it and cool with it, and ready to
Well,
go. So,
I remember, I had a DVD, and I don't know if you still have it or if you've given it away, but there's in the early 2000s, WWE put out a couple of before they were stars DVDs, and one of them was a featured Cena, and it
oh,
like
okay,
showed him, his life. And I remember because this has been seared into my brain because it's something I never wanted to see. It's like he's standing talking, and then he walks away, and he's just wearing a thong, and so
God,
it's like so. Yeah, I guess he's comfortable with that.
yeah.
And I never watched Total Bellas, which I guess showed him as more of a robotic type character, or
Mm,
with his set rules of life. I don't know, but yeah, no, I think Cena. One of the things that um, like when The Rock first started, he did Tooth Fairy and trying to think of something else, something a little comedic, but he's kind of gone more action
yeah,
oriented his career. I always said, I think Steve Austin made the mistake of never going true comedy, although he is in
yeah.
Grown Ups too. I think he would have been better suited to play against type and do the comedic stuff instead of just the generic action films. And so I think in that regard, I think Batista's probably had the best career in terms of quality.
Yeah.
Um, but I think Cena has the potential to be, I don't know if necessarily breakout star, but to do to be a well-rounded actor, I would say.
And let's talk a little bit about that too, because in the '80s we had Jesse Ventura, we had
Mm-hmm.
Hulk Hogan, and we had Rowdy Piper, who were probably when I think of wrestlers turned actor in the '80s, those three I think are arguably the ones
Mm-hmm.
that people most talk about. Hulk Hogan, I think, as much as he wanted to become really truly Hollywood Hulk Hogan, it never worked for him because I think partly because of his look. He
Mm-hmm.
John Cena, can put on a suit and put on an action hero costume or run around, dressed like
Mm-hmm.
Britney Spears or whatever, and you can buy into it. Uh, Rock and Batista the same, and I will admit, other than the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, I have not seen anything else Batista has done, but I've heard great things about him. Kevin Nash has made the transition. Steve Austin, like you brought up, but I think Steve Austin, you're 100% right. If he would have leaned a bit more into the comedic stuff, which we saw he could do in ECW and then even
Mm-hmm.
in WWE when he was doing the stuff with Kurt Angle and Vince McMahon, it could have definitely worked. But uh, Hogan, for whatever reason, it just didn't translate. Jesse Ventura, I think it did to an extent, and then Piper, kind of the same thing. I think that all three of those guys didn't necessarily, and I know Hogan did Mr. Nanny and Santa with Muscles, but
Mhm.
I think Piper could have been a great comedic actor, but I think he wanted that badass action hero
Well,
from They Live and some of the
Hell
other.
comes to Frogtown.
Yeah, I was trying to think of it. I knew it was Frogtown. I couldn't remember the first part
Uh,
of it, but yeah. What do you think?
well, I think the '80s were a different time, and where it was more of the action star decade.
Hmm.
Because you had Stallone, Schwarzenegger, Van Damme, and I think uh, I don't think Hogan could have fit into that genre. Again, I think, like you said, his look just. Uh,
Right.
I think when you look at him, you see Hulk Hogan, and it just wasn't going to translate. And then the products that he did weren't good. They were just one step above direct to video releases. And Jesse, the only thing I could think of him being in was The Running Man and Predator. So he was more of a sidekick
Yeah.
supporting character. I don't think he had any leading role, and I don't know if he had the leading role chops.
Yeah.
But I think he was a fine secondary character. And Piper, I think, same thing. Like, he was good in They Live, and I would have liked to see him do more comedy, because I think he could have done it well. But I don't know if there's the ego aspect of, well, I'm a professional wrestler, so I have to be shown kicking ass. I can't, again, as I said with John Cena, I can't show ass, because that would go against my character.
Yeah.
And I think I think any actor that goes into it in those regards is always going to limit themselves, because, and I don't know if fans will get tired of that persona, and especially now in today's you know um, society of the action star not really being as in favor, I guess. I know what I'm trying to say, and I don't know how to say it. It's just what times have changed. We've talked about it before in the
Hmm.
show, and
Sure.
when I was doing my show, times have changed. You can't get away with the the I don't know, the stoic, sexist, macho character. So
Right.
now you have to be more vulnerable,
Hmm.
and even Batista has shown that. I mean, this hulking mass of a guy. The Guardians movies, he plays a guy who isn't an idiot, but doesn't get sarcasm.
Yeah.
So he's the butt of the joke sometimes.
Yeah.
And if you see Knives Out, to Glass Onion, like, he's kind of a caricature of what you expect a person like him to be. So yeah, going back, Hogan and Ventura and Piper, I just don't think the time frame that they were in lent itself to them being taken seriously outside of wrestling.
Yeah. I mean, I would also, I guess not argue, but bring up that I do think that the before mentioned 80 stars versus the above mentioned current stars
Mhm.
or more modern stars, the modern guys have them beat as far as the ability to be a viable character. I
Yeah.
couldn't see Hulk Hogan playing in that Ricky Stanicky role, at least the '80s version of Hogan.
Mhm.
Um, I don't think Hogan's. I think part of it too. The whole look and whether Hulk should have shaved his head and done the Austin and Batista and Rock
Mhm.
route where they were all losing their hair and they've shaved their heads and I don't know if that plays a factor into it or not, but I just yeah I can't see them breaking that wrestler. I'm a wrestler acting in a movie stereotype
Mhm.
versus where I do see Cena. Sometimes that still kind of comes through it. Yeah, this guy's a wrestler in a movie, but
Mhm.
he's done a lot to change that kind of stereotype, I guess, or that yeah that
Mhm.
being pigeonholed or typecasted as a wrestler. Instead of
Mhm.
them saying in Hollywood, we're doing a movie where we need a wrestler to be in this role. It's more of we're just looking for someone for this part, and those guys have filled it well.
Yeah.
Cena,
Well,
Batista, and Barak.
do you think it also, because the current day wrestlers are more actor-y, I'll
Mhm.
say, where, I know Miz takes acting lessons.
Yeah,
And I'm sure, I don't know, but I would guess Cena has probably done the same thing,
yeah,
where, and the character development is more focused on in development. Down in NXT, they have promo class and character,
yeah,
situation. Whereas for the 80s guys, it was just go out there and do your job,
yeah,
and if you work on the character, you do it alone and, in your hotel room. So,
yeah. That's a good point, and I think that uh, as much as I just kind of probably sounded like I was criticizing Hogan and Piper and Ventura, I also applaud them because they opened that door and those opportunities. I mean, Hulk Hogan. I think the whole reason Hogan, not the whole reason, but I think that Hogan being in Rocky 3,
mhm,
the old story goes that Vincent J. McMahon didn't want Hogan to do that movie, and I think had
mhm,
let him go, and Vern Gagne let
yeah.
him do the movie, and then Vincent Kennedy McMahon saw this as a golden opportunity and leaned into it. So yeah, I think that there's a that mentality and letting Hogan do that, and again, No Holds Barred is when No Holds Barred is the best movie that you have on your resume. It's probably a little suspect of your
Yeah.
acting chops.
Yeah. And again, and I think just quality of film too, because
Mhm.
I think, Hogan was going for the family friendly films. They wanted, because he was, the all American guy that has to save the day, has to be the good guy.
Yeah,
Which again, could he have played against type and been the bad guy? And I mean, obviously we got that with the NWO Hollywood Hogan, but then we got Three Ninjas Escape from Magic Mountain or whatever it is, and yeah, that's yeah. Anyway, back to Ricky Stanicky.
well, it's funny too because I had a coworker and I posted this on social media last week, but that they had come into my office and said, "Do you know who John Cena is?" And they know that I'm a wrestling fan, so that's
Mm,
why I think she came in and asked me that. And I just happened to be wearing my John Cena socks that day, but it's like I do feel like there are more wrestlers who are making that crossover to pop culture that people
mhm.
recognize them. Maybe they know, oh yeah, he used to wrestle, but now he's in Peacemaker or he's in the Hefty Bag commercials, or I don't know
He's
how
the
many.
voice of the elephant in the pistachio nut
Yeah,
commercials.
I don't know how many people ran to Amazon Prime to watch Ricky Stanicky necessarily
Yeah.
that aren't wrestling fans, but again, I thought that it was a solid film, and uh, the other actors in it, I thought were you know did a good job as well, and
Mm. Yeah, Sami Zayn was great.
I was going to say you sent me that shot. It said Sami Zayn, and I've seen that guy in other stuff, but I couldn't
I looked him up. I didn't
yeah,
recognize anything he'd been in, but yeah. No, but there are two people who I did not recognize. Well, first I
yeah,
want to say William H. Macy's in the film. Talented, legend. Anything with him is going to be good. But there were two actresses who I did not recognize until I looked them up. One of them, I recognized the name in the credits after I saw it. Um, and I didn't notice it. I didn't pay attention to the beginning credits if she was in. But the wife that gave birth, did you recognize her? Susan, I think her name is.
I can't remember.
She's the lead actress from Loudermilk.
Oh yes, yes, yes. Which I actually recognized her from
Hmm.
is Big Sky. She
Oh,
was on Big Sky as the. Did you watch Big Sky?
I think I watched the first episode and then
Oh,
tuned
okay.
out.
Well, I think she comes up a couple episodes into it, but
Oh,
yes, I can't remember her name either, but I did recognize her.
yeah.
I always though recognized her from Big Sky before Loudermilk because I watched
Mm,
Big Sky
yeah.
first.
And then William H. Macy's wife.
I
This will be a big throwback if you recognize. And again, I recognize the name, but didn't recognize the face.
I can't. It's been it's been
Yeah.
a while.
Um,
Who was it?
she played. Her name is Jane Badler, I believe.
Hmm.
She played Diana, the lead alien in V.
Oh, I didn't watch B, so I wouldn't.
What?
I
Were you
know.
not an '80s kid?
I was, but I mean, I
It's too
saw.
scary for you.
Yeah, I wasn't smurfy enough. Um, oh, why, hello, little dog. I've got a dog breaking in on this
Oh.
podcast. But yeah, I would not have recognized her, buddy. Why don't you go
Hmm.
on out? Uh, yeah,
Hmm.
that's interesting. I did not
Hmm.
recognize her. So
Yeah. And I didn't realize she'd been acting since the. I just thought V is over, and I haven't seen her since. But yeah, so that was a good throwback. And again, it made me want to go back and watch parts of the movie again just to pay attention to those actresses. But yeah, other than that, there was. Oh, I guess the other one is. Did you recognize at the big henchman bald guy that is trying to get to John Cena's character?
yes, it was someone that again, I should have rewatched this before we
Uh,
recorded because I knew I was
yeah,
going to sit here and struggle to remember little details about the
details.
film.
It's
It
Nathan
is somebody.
Jones.
Who is it? Nathan
Nathan
Jones.
Jones. Yeah.
Yes. I'm like, that guy is familiar. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So good to see he's doing something, I guess,
So,
huh?
yeah. It
But
is.
yeah, and it's been a while since we've done a movie mania,
Mm.
and I don't even remember our ranking system for the
I think it was curtain jerker, mid card, main event, or indie show.
so what'd you think? What did you think of Ricky Stanicky?
I think I'd go mid card because,
Yeah.
like, again, it wasn't what I was expecting, which pleasantly a
Yeah.
surprise. But I mean, it's not. I don't think I'm going to go back and rewatch it
Right.
unless I fall asleep again
Yeah.
watching it. So yeah, no, it was fine. Zac Efron was good. I know I'm not a huge Zac Efron fan. Um, I mean, Iron Claw, he's good in that too. But um, yeah, I just, it's a interesting concept. I don't think there, and I've said way too much in this episode, but there's lots of things that uh, reading about this movie as well. Apparently, it's taken like 15 years to get made, and it has, I think, like 7 different writers attributed to it because through the process of different actors being attached, they've changed aspects of it and
Mm.
made it. So I think, anytime you go over 3 writers, you're just, you're not getting a solid script, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And so I think that showed in this case. But yeah, it's fun. I mean, I would recommend it if you've got 2 hours to kill. Although again, I think it could have been a 90-minute film,
Mhm.
but yeah, I think Cena did a good job. The supporting cast is good. Yeah, other than I don't know, maybe the unbelievability
Right.
of
I
the
really have
fact,
to suspend.
yeah. But no, I was pleasantly surprised. Like I did not. I went into it kind of fearing like, oh, I'm gonna hate this, but yeah, good surprise.
Do you think that the talent, of not just WWE? I know that Roman Reigns is currently doing a film. Uh, I'm sure there are or will be some uh, AEW talent and other talent. Nick Nemeth has expressed interest in
Mm.
doing things outside of wrestling. Do you think we'll see a time where we get wrestlers, multiple wrestlers, men and women, because we really haven't seen that female breakout star yet either, I think, on the big screen. But will we see a time where it's a wrestling casted film about a non-wrestling topic, if that makes sense. So
Um,
we insert a bunch of other actors and actresses into the Ricky Stanicky film that maybe weren't or that were our former or current wrestlers. Can we see a movie with like that? Would it work? Would fans buy in? Movie fans, not wrestling fans. Of course, I think wrestling
uh,
fans would watch.
yeah, it's going to depend on the studio, who's financing it, who's making it. Because if it's a WWE film, I don't think people will
Right.
give it the credit, because they'll be like, oh, WWE, of
Yeah.
course, it's going to be WWE. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think, um, you know, I, I'm trying to think because I don't think The Rock was in the Fast and Furious movies that John Cena is in.
No,
I
I
think,
don't think so.
yeah. So we didn't get that crossover or that collaboration. I'd be curious if we ever see a Rock and Batista or Batista and Cena,
Yeah.
movie. You mentioned Roman Reigns doing a film. I think Roman, and hopefully he'll prove me wrong, but I think Roman goes back to what we were discussing about Hogan and Pike. I don't know if Roman cannot be Roman Reigns
I agree. That's yeah.
because and that I'm basing that off of the fact that he hasn't really. I know the Bloodline feud has been really popular. I have issues with it. I don't think he's the star that he's been made out to be, my opinion.
Yeah.
So he's going to have to prove himself to have some depth as an actor. Whereas I think, like we said, Rock and Cena and Batista have all at times tried to play against type to show versatility. So we'll see. I mean, I don't know what film he's shooting. I know he was in Hobbs and Shaw as a small role, but basically playing a Polynesian, um, warrior. So we'll see. I'm curious. I'm trying to think if there have been any female wrestlers that have had major roles, and outside of WWE films.
I mean that one with Paige, but that was
But she wasn't in the movie.
yeah.
Fighting with My
Xavier
Family.
Woods and Brad Maddox were co-stars. Sorry, I should
Oh
have.
no! Turn the page.
Anyway, sorry about that.
Uh,
But yeah, you're right about that. I don't, and that's what I was also kind of wondering because they've talked about Becky Lynch recently.
mhm,
She's kind of uh, a free agent, I guess, for lack of a
mhm.
better word, unless something has happened over the weekend as we're recording this. But would she go on? I know she did some episodes of Young Rock playing Cyndi Lauper, which
Right.
was what it was. But uh, I'm curious if there is a female on either roster or in any
Yeah.
aspect of wrestling that could uh, make it on the big screen and be someone that would be a. I think Trish Stratus has done some indie films or some
Mm.
smaller roles in Canada, but I don't know that anyone. And if we're wrong here, let us know who's really kind of stood out. But there is not that Rock, Batista, John Cena on the female side of things. And I think now that women's wrestling is being more recognized and promoted, and they're doing more with it on in all companies. I think that it's just a matter of time before that happens.
Yeah. I'm looking up right now. I don't see any major roles for female wrestlers inside, outside of like WWE films. Or I mean, Trish Stratus was in a movie called Gridlocked and Bale Enforcers, but
Yeah,
Gridlocked apparently is on Netflix. So, and yeah, Becky Lynch was in one of the Marine movies, and then Ronda Rousey, but I don't know if I would consider her a wrestler turned actress because I think she made most of her films in before she went to WWE. And if you've not seen the Entourage movie, then that's one you can check out. And she has a semi memorable scene in that one.
okay. Anything else, Chad, as we wrap up this week's episode?
Um, no, I don't know. I think I'm just going to go with what we've said time and time again, because I see it across all, not just in wrestling, but all aspects of life. Like we need to find a way to get rid of tribalism. We need to just, you know, understand that there can be more than one perspective, more than one fandom. Let people enjoy what they want to enjoy. And if you have a disagreement, talk to someone instead of just insulting them and insulting whatever they like that you don't. So let's just try to be more civil.
That has to be an internet thing, right? I mean, in the 80s, like I've said a couple
Yeah.
weeks ago, I watched everything,
Yeah.
anything that came on. And I think Adam Copeland said this in an interview recently. Like, literally on Saturday nights and Sunday mornings,
Mm.
it would go from world class to WWF superstars to UWF. And I sat there and watched all of these shows, and I did
Yeah.
not say, well, Hulk Hogan did. I had my favorites, obviously, but yeah, there was not. I did not criticize my friends being. And I think you and I have talked about this.
Yeah.
Growing up, you were more of an NWA JCP guy, and I was more of a WWF guy. I watched both. You watched both, but
Yeah.
it's your personal preferences. But I never, and the handful of friends I had as a kid that watched, other than my one friend that was a big Rock and Roll Express Ricky Morton fan who I made fun of. But besides that, I was, and Chad has left the show. He's had enough. Oh, he's back.
Oh, you can't really see them. I got my
Oh,
new
okay.
micro brawlers.
And that also, I wish that I would have had those because Marty Jannetty's further back. But here's Shawn Michaels. I did a video on the Rockers being better than the Rock and Roll Express.
Mhm.
I was surprised by the number of people that actually agreed with that, but the ones that did not agree were not. I mean, they were pissed that I said that. So anyway, we can all have our differences, and like Chad said, whether it's wrestling or movies or
Yeah.
politics or whatever it is, and seeing more of that again, obviously with politics.
Yeah.
We can have different viewpoints and still be friends and get along and whatever. So yeah,
And I do think
sucks.
I think it is an internet thing because again, you have a bigger voice, a bigger reach, whereas and you can say things without consequence, without someone calling you, if you and I are having a discussion, if I say something, you're gonna call me out like you did earlier with the Jack Perry fire spot.
Right.
You're gonna be like, oh, what about this? Whereas
Yeah.
on the internet, you can just throw it out there and walk away.
Yeah.
You can set it on fire.
Be nice to each other, friends. And again, don't forget to subscribe, rate, review, like this podcast, like the YouTube channel, follow along, and let us know what is on your mind as well. We're going to wrap things up this week. Thanks again for being a part of the experience. Have a great week, and we will talk again soon.